love it. It's cool. Again, just a new breed of technology, and some people don't understand it, but guess what? You know what you understand? Somebody's going to win. You got two amazing cars, high horsepower. Dan Burkett initiates. The GT radials go round. Nice job by Dan Burkett. Big angle. Ooh, looks like he kind of had a hiccup there. Threw a lot of angle out there. Look at that, massive. Kind of almost rotate. That's a hard act to follow.
Yes, it is. He threw a lot of angle at outside zone 1.
And that's going to just absolutely throw off Dean Carney here. So unfortunately, you know, with Rad Dan's massive angle, I think that really did disrupt. So adding to your point, your elaboration.
Yep.
So now let's see what we get. Run 2, the second half of this battle. Dean Carney, that Hyper NFT Dodge Viper. Now coming into view of the fans here in the building in that first outside zone. Nice snapping transition by both drivers. And I believe Dan definitely knows he's got to step up. Nice job by Dean Carney. Look at Brad Dan now getting right tucked in. Yep. Looks like just barely nicking it. There wasn't a tire, and you talk about the driver's meeting. You can't hit that cone. The piece of artwork that I thought was funny is near the elevators, and it's like really generic NASCARs.
NASCARs, yeah.
Yeah, it's
all
the
white.
weirdest looking NASCARs I've ever seen. Here we go. Dan Burkett and Simon Olsen. Dan Burkett leads with that number 4 qualifying position. I got to tell you, Burkett looking really strong yesterday. Can he continue that success? Now coming to that second outside zone. Look at that. And that's what I'm talking about. Dan Burkett. Simon Olsen all up in that smoke cloud. Continues the proximity, but Dan Burkett is, I mean, that's probably the best I've seen Dan Burkett.
Between him and Olsen in the chase position, and mimic what he's doing, and he'll prevail there in the chase-to-chase comparison at least.
Yeah, the way Dan was driving out front, if he gets even just a glimmer of that in the chase, I really think he's going to shine here and get the win. But Simon Olsen coming to us from Norway, he doesn't want to pack up his stuff just yet. Again, Norwegian Trip Championship competitor. Coming down that second outside zone. Simon Olsen, a lot in the dirt there. But look at Dan Burkett, the composure there from Burkett. He almost took himself out, but that's a hard act to follow. You saw how far Simon Olsen went off the course. Let's see what we got, boys. Let's get a clean fight here. Dan Burkett leaves that start chicane. Make some noise, Atlanta. Come on, here we go. Dan Burkett, Mike Power coming into that first inside clip. Big angle there from Dan Burkett. Mike Power transitions through. Mike Power taking a way shallower line. Gets into the dirt. Dan Burkett, and that's what you're talking about, Lantaine. Whoa. Mike Power overshoots that second outside zone. Dan Burkett needs to continue on through the course. Mike Power struggling right now. One more turn for a massive advantage there for Dan Burkett. Again, Burkett is years, but I think strategy-wise, Dan Burkett just needs to play it cool, and he's going to have the victory here, as Mike Power had that major mistake. Power out front, initiates. He needs to throw down a solid lead run here, as Dan Burkett. Look at, that's what Mike's doing, exactly what he needs to do. A little bit more composed. Burkett does take a shallower line, but mind you, Mike Power did not get all the way out to that second outside zone. And now into that final clip. Really smooth, aggressive earlier in all the battles. Let's see what we got. Rad Dan out front. Coming down the hill. Here comes that Mark IV Toyota Supra into that first front clip. Big angle there from Dan Burkett. Taking that middle line past what will be that touch and go. Burkett into the first outside zone. Coming to that second outside zone. Dan Burkett getting all the way out there. Forsberg now transitioning out, and you cannot even see them with the naked eye. There is so much smoke, unbelievable, as Burkett and Forsberg. Holy cow, that was. I don't know. You know, we had some words with him earlier, kind of broke up, but he is just. Whatever he's doing, let's see more of that this year.
Absolutely.
Chris Forsberg leading NOS Energy Drink, all new Nissan Z on GT radial tires into that first clip. Dan Burkett tucks into formation. Forsberg powers up the hill in that first outside zone 1. Burkett, big angle there. Does not get out to the outside zone 2. Burkett, you can see him. He missed that outside zone, but that was a good compromise. He got the proximity. Now Forsberg passed that touch and go. And one more clip. Whoa, Dan Burkett really, unfortunately, went tight on that. Here we go. Love to not have to do the sight laps. Just turn and burn, baby. Masayama, by now Japan. In the front, Dan Burkett sticks the nose, that Mark IV Supra to the side of Masayama. You can see them both just kind of click, 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 torquing it up. Now in that first inside clip, Dan a little bit off further than Masayama. Now to the second inside clip. Dan making a quick little adjustment there. Still does hit that second clip. Not a lot of angle here from Masayama. And now, look at that, allowing Dan Burkett. Oh, look at that, smooching tire tread. Who's gonna come out on top? Who's going against Chris the Force Forsberg in the 16? We are in the Rockstar Energy Drink Top 32. Rat Dance. Initiates, look at that.
Smoke.
Oh, I'm seeing some smoke, seeing some steam. Oh, look at that, backs it in. And Masayama, now he's playing catch up. Big angle there from Burkett. And we talked about how he's gotten his car dialed. Look at that massive angle from Dan Burkett. A little bit off of that outside line. I'd like to see him out there, but I think he was a little nervous. He didn't want to go too far. That Rad Industries Gear Wrench, Mark IV Super, GT Radials, both these guys on GT Radials. Little stutter step there from Burkett and Forsberg. Swing across the nose from Dan Burkett. And here comes Forsberg talking about that horsepower he's got on deck. Will it show up here, coming down into that first inner clip. Chris Forsberg brings it across its second inside clip. Dan Burkett almost into that crease. So Dan Burkett coming a bit short. Our previous round of competition currently sits 5th in points. Wants to continue that success. He's going to need to throw down here. Big initiation from him. Dan Burkett gets right to the side of him. Has to fall back as Forsberg continues on in pace. Again, that soft suspension absorbs it. Now going into that second inside clip and that final second outer zone. Burkett bathing in the GT Radial smoke. Burkett keeps his prowess though. The win in round 3, the overall win in Orlando. Let's see how this fast orange Permatex BMW handles here in New Jersey as Dan Burkett comes in hot. Dylan Hughes stays in it. Yo, look at that, door to door. And look at the Falcon tires keep going around. Dylan Hughes, like I said, just a lot of confidence here for the dozer. He gets a little doze here. Wheel to wheel, look at Dan Burkett. Woo! And he's watching Japan, and he's watching Formula Drift right now. So shout out to my boy Mad Mike and our homeboy. Here we go, Dan Burkett, Rad Industries, Gear Wrench, comes on in. Big swing there, and you talk about Dan Burkett, Ryan, and here he is, back in it. Great job by Dan Burkett. Dylan Hughes again, right there, banging on his door. Woo, look at this. Well done by Dan Burkett. Dylan Hughes, one more outside zone. Is there a blaring winner? This is the one more time battle. So again, this is all fresh. Here we go, Dylan Hughes, Dan Burkett. We saw a great battle between these two gentlemen. And we'll see if we see it again, or is somebody going to stand out and rise to the occasion. And Dylan Hughes, oh, looks like Dan Burkett jumps in on the inside a little too aggressive. You saw him exceed those front wheels, but Dan Burkett now, he looks like he's making Dylan maybe crack under pressure. But Dylan Hughes transitions back in that final outside zone. And man, it looks like these guys are up at Willow Springs going out front. Let's see what Dan Burkett's got out front. But I feel like Dylan, his posture, his confidence coming out of Orlando, give himself a little bit of room there, but is that too much? And boom, goes in the side of him. But almost, this is almost like what we saw in the first battle, where Dan went, and as you called him, a backstop. Dylan the backstop, but right now the dozer living up to his name in that final outside zone. Looks like he stays in it.
The tactics, it's interesting to
here we go. Place your bets. Speaking of dealer's choice, here we go. Kazuya Taguchi and Dan Burkett coming in the first outside zone. Kazuya Taguchi up garage, ISR performance. Ooh, Dan Burkett swings wide on that first outside zone. Let's see if that momentum of Kazuya Taguchi will continue. And look at that, it looks like the mummy is coming their way, and no, it just barely evades them as Kazuya Taguchi goes in that outside zone 4. Dan Burkett comes up a bit shy. Radials, there we go. Kazuya Taguchi is going to chase him down. So he looks great as the Lone Ranger, but how's he going to do ride the saddleback. Here we go. All right, Dan Burkett goes in that first outside zone. Kazuya Taguchi bathing in smoke. Looked like a Bath and Body Works and a bath bomb going off in his face. Now into that third outside zone and coming on in. It's that final outside zone. So Kazuya Taguchi comes up a bit short, but by comparison, unfortunately, Dan Burkett, I just think the mistakes were greater on the side. Kind of pins and needles there with Trenton Beecham, almost knocking him out, but here he is. He's in it to win it. Let's see if he's going to win it. Kazuya Taguchi coming down the straight, now launching into that first outside zone, officially turning the wheels. Here in Seattle, Kazuya Taguchi, big angle there. Dan Burkett needs to be a little bit higher. Kazuya Taguchi still maintaining, riding that high line, coming to that second outside zone. Absolutely spot on with that second outside zone. Looks like Brad Dan needs to get a little more pressure to the side of the 86. Nice job, and there it is. Dan does dive in on that last outside zone, but what a great from you and alongside your judges. And sometimes you don't see eye to eye on things. You see certain things or you're focused on particular elements, but I think it's a great tool to utilize you as far as insight. Here we go, Dan Burkett leading. Good initiation by Dan Burkett. You saw that right to angle. That's what we're looking for. Get to it quickly. And Kazuya Taguchi, you can see him take a little angle out of gaining proximity, but he does need to mimic that angle. And Taguchi goes off course. Holy cow. He is going absolutely on the inside. I want to run that back and see, was he hit, was he impeded, or he just pushed too hard? He might have got blinded by the smoke. Again, pure speculation at this point. I'm looking at the battle in Seattle. Dean Carney, HyperNFT.io. Metacars in the metaverse. Hypercars, I should say. Here we go. Dean Carney initiates with that Dodge Viper in tow. Good initiation there by Dean Carney. Works his way high on the bank, as opposed to Burkett. He's got good proximity, but it needs to be higher. Now coming into that power alley. Whoa, Burkett really pushes. He held that a little long, but look at this. Woo! Bangs on the side of the Viper. I believe there's contact. Look at the flames. Burkett lunges back and forth. Oh man, it's an arm wrestling match. What a great way to start the top 16. Out front, so you talked about just his aggressive driving. Brad Dan living up to his name. Dan Burkett and Dean Carney always throwing it down. Dan Burkett looks like putting the car in the right place. Carney coming through. Can't even see him in that smoke. Past that inside clip. Now here goes Burkett into that last outside zone. And Carney, again, both of them are just driving aggressively. I think we'll need to run it back at 16, and here we go. So this is a full one more time battle. Dean Carney, HyperNFT.io. Dodge Viper initiates into the bank. Good job. Look at how settled the car is. Even with those, he had those steering issues. Hopefully he got it worked out, got it fixed. Into that second outside. Holy Burkett. Dean stays in it. Finishes out the run, it looks like, and Burkett was flying into that, but coulda, shoulda, woulda, maybe, right? Am I correct in saying? So, all right, so what? Okay, we're going right back to it. Here we go. Brad Dan will lead. Dean Carney going into it, even with that contact, continuing on through the course. And now into that second outside zone, Dan Burkett. And here comes, I thought Dean was gonna door him right there. Carnage going for it, and then into that last outside zone. Dan Burkett barely got that GT radial tire in there. And so this is not once, but twice. They're going, one more time, so TMT, it's dynamite. Here we go, Dean Carney, Dan Burkett, fighting hard for the money, fighting oh so hard for it, honey. Dean Carney, look at Dan Burkett. Big angle from Carnage, that Hyper NFT Viper. Fighting for a great 8th spot. Looks like Carney had a much more fluid transition going from 2 to 3 and then now into 4. Whoa!
Was that another little bump there, Jared?
I don't think there was. All right. And back at it. Here we go. Into that outside zone. Here goes Dan Burkett. Remember, this is the second run of the second one more time. Dan Burkett higher than Dean Carney. Dean Carney taking a lower line. Gets thrown off on that second outside zone. Dean Carney straightens out, shuts her down. And it looks like as long as Dan Burkett finishes out the run, it is his victory. between. Once they extinguish, they're good to go. Here comes Freddie Aasbo through that start chicane. Dropping down, Dan Burkett gives way, and oh, Aasbo goes hard, straightens out. And he got that exposed back left wheel, but here's the scenario, Ryan. Freddie could finish out this run, but the biggest thing here is that unchaseable. You know, here's Dan Burkett, who, I don't know, I want to take a look at this. He shuts it down, but, and then of course, a very classic venue for us, Irwindale. Here we go, second half of this battle. Aasbo sitting on an incomplete. Dan Burkett can find his first time in the Final Four, going against the two-time defending champion. Dan Burkett, Rat Industries, Gear Wrench, Mark IV, Toyota Supra, coming down to the power alley. Frederick Aasbo trying to force a mistake on Dan Burkett, but Dan Burkett keeps the composure against the two-time champ around that inside clip, and one more outside zone for Dan Burkett to enter into the Final Four against the two-time champ.
Parking on the light, so field needs to be clean through the chicane for this to be a clean run.
Looks like a clean start. Here we go, Matt Field, Dan Burkett in the Type S top four. Matt Field, our current points leader, going to Dan Burkett in his best finish. Can he better it even now here in Seattle? Matt Field has second outside zone, now coming into the third. Both of them fairly equally matched right now. Again, the Supra chasing down the Beast of the Bay, Rad Dan. And guess what? Dan Burkett was talking about that. He says, you know what? Literally and figuratively, meaning just the track condition on how the cars gripped up and couldn't slide out in certain areas. Here we go. All right, so Dan Burkett out front, Rat Industries, Gear Wrench, Toyota Supra, GT Radios initiates. Matt Field right there, chasing him down into that big outside zone. Matt Field trying to get the victory, but Dan Burkett delivering into that third outside zone. Lick the stamp and send it, baby. As Dan Burkett brings it into that final outside zone, and Matt Field, he's right there. Do we have a victor? Super excited. So here's our first battle. You know, hey, guess what? Crazy things happen. You know, our eyes are watching Aasbo in the championship, but here's Dan Burkett. So this does have championship implications. Keep in mind, if Frederick Aasbo goes out here, basically it's Matt Field, so you always can't count people out. Dan Burkett barely gets in with that 32. Oh, he goes on the wrong side of that inside clip. He goes in the side, and Dan Burkett goes in hard. Frederick Aasbo does need to continue with his line, but Dan Burkett a little loose in that chase position. A lot loose. It does look like that, the way things are painted. But you know what I'm happy about? Aasbo advances, Field advances. A champion isn't crowned in 32. In 32, yeah. In 32. It may be crowned in 16, it may be crowned in 8, or if both these guys meet, let's lay out and listen to our defending champion, Frederick the Norwegian Hammer Aasbo. You to watch the series called Controlled Chaos, featuring that gentleman